Super Mario Party Jamboree is just released, and I've tackled every single minigame to rank them. This list is based on how much fun they are to play, as well as how much replay value they have. So with that, let's get her ranked. 112, Prize Line. And of course, we're starting with the primitive item minigames. For this one, you push a button, and a line is drawn, and you get the item. Truly riveting gameplay right here. 111, A Stone's Throw. Okay, so this time, you just time your A press differently and push a stone forward. Really partying out here, aren't we? 110, Prize Drop. So you drop a coin this time, and you just get any item. There's not much you can do to control which item to get, but at least it's a bit more engrossing to look at. 109, Roll With It. Another item minigame. This one being a little more interesting since you can roll a ball to the item you want. I mean, I guess that's more interesting, although that's kind of a stretch. 108, Flip and Find. You want a free item? Just look at the cards you want, let them spin around for a second, and get it for a discount of 100%. 107, Gatekeepers. This one literally makes me sigh every time it comes up. The idea is to guess which key opens what door. So basically, it is complete stupid luck to get first place. The highest odds you'll ever have at guessing the right key and door combination is 50%, which is pretty low on its own. And look, Mario Party has had minigames like this in the past where it's luck the whole time. Bowser's Big Blast comes to mind as an example, but at least that has fun explosions and suspense. This is just opening a f***ing door. It's boring and a huge drag. 106, Lost and Pound. It's another minigame that's just pure luck if you'll win or not. The solo player picks one of the circles to hide in, while the other 3 picks where the hammer will drop. 3 hits and you're done. While this may not seem like much in hindsight, the odds of winning solo is incredibly small. But also, you might just not get hit at all. There's no strategy whatsoever. 105, Matchmakers. One of the worst 2v2s in the game. You team up to pick matching cards before the other team. This purely comes down to luck since you can't know what cards are going to match. You either find the match quickly or you don't. 104, Hot Cross Blocks. This one is either going to be frustrating to play or you get lucky as hell. The goal is to get past the lava by selecting the blocks you need to move forward on the right. The only problem is that if 2 or more people pick the same block, then neither of you get it. So this is all about trying to psych out what people are going to pick, but all it really does is drag down the entire minigame when you get stuck for over a minute from getting bad luck. 103, Blame It on the Crane. I don't understand why this minigame keeps getting remade. I've never enjoyed it that much. One player controls the crane, while the others are trapped in balls. Lucky for them, this is the world's most useless crane and can only move left and right. It's very easy to avoid the crane if you move in erratic patterns as you're approaching it. 102, Platform Peril. I am beyond disappointed with what happened to Platform Peril. What used to be a fun and challenging minigame that had tight jumps and a couple coins as bonuses has turned into a complete clown show. The platform spacing is practically non-existent, and this has basically just turned into a coin collecting minigame. I wouldn't normally put something like this so low on the list, but the sheer disgrace it has compared to the originals is just saddening. 101, Thwomp the Difference. Another quiz kind of minigame. Thwomps will rise up revealing a photo, and you have to spot the difference. Depending on who you're playing with, this will either be really fun or really annoying. Master CPUs pick almost instantaneously, but I imagine with human players this would be okay despite how simple it is. 100, Big Top Quiz. Some toads roll on top of a ball that has an image. Then you just answer a quiz question based on the images or what the toads are doing. These quiz-themed minigames can be really hit or miss, but this is one of the better ones since it doesn't drag on that long. 99, Dory Pedal Paddle. So you'll shake the controller to move Dory forward, but of course you can only move in one direction. I've never enjoyed these types of Mario Party minigames in the past, and it's not much better in this case. 98, Night Lights. Shake your controller and get the lights up as fast as possible. Against master CPUs, they somehow do it in like 10 seconds, but it's pretty mindless when it's all said and done. 97, Pickaxe Dash. It's almost identical to Night Lights, except you don't have to shake as much. The premise is a bit more interesting too, as you'll have to speedily dig through a tunnel and make an opening before anyone else. 96, Tilt-A-Golf. Think monkey ball, but it's mini golf. The idea is to roll the ball into the hole as fast as possible by only tilting the stage. It's kind of fun, and I think it's a decent usage of motion controls as well. Something that is kind of perplexing, however, is that you have to use the Joy-Con to play, but the Pro Controller has motion controls as well. I don't know, I guess I'm just kind of confused why you can't use either or. 95. Wario's Buzzer Beater. As someone that isn't a super big fan of the quiz-themed minigames, this one is probably the best one. You have to answer a bunch of different questions that have a lot of variety in its presentation. It still feels like it goes on for way too long, but at least it's presented well. 94. Sunset Standoff. One player controls the bomber bill, while the others have to survive getting hit. This is a huge mind game minigame, but this one is just alright. 1v3 minigames have always struggled to strike a balance with making the minigame fair to both teams, but this one is very sided to the group of 3. Even when trying to juke the players out, it's not that hard to avoid bomber bill if you're being careful. 93. Ball Volley. This has to be the most awkward looking setup ever. Look at how many nets are crammed into one court. But the point is to continuously bounce volleyballs from person to person. This is done by just pushing the button while over the circle, and that's about it. 92. Dragon Eel Slayers. I might be hitting Hot Take City over here, but I don't really care that much for the boss minigames. Dragon Eel Slayers is inherently a neat idea, but the fact that everybody teams up together instead of competing kind of ruins the suspense entirely. Like, yes, you get points for hitting him with shells, and someone can get the most points, but when playing this in the solo mode where it's unlocked, it doesn't matter who gets more or less points, you just kind of win every time. 91. Mega Stingbee Stompers. Another boss minigame, but this time you have to ground pound a huge Stingbee. So again, it's fun to play and all, but there's no stakes. You just keep hitting him over and over until he poofs in the clouds and is gone. 90. Unfriendly Flying Object. One person is in a UFO, dropping spiky platforms, and the other 3 are avoiding them. Because the UFO moves so slowly and the spikes are usually not that big, it makes it very hard to win as a solo player. You can kind of trap players in corners, but they also just jump over most traps you have, and the spikes are falling so slowly that it's easy to avoid them regardless. 89. Fast Fishing. When the bobber goes down, you pull up and grab the fishy. It's one of the most bare-bone minigames in Jamboree, but I don't mind playing it from time to time. 88. Luigi Rescue Operation. Luigi is trapped in a mansion, and we have to save him by solving a bunch of puzzles. While I'm a huge fan of the premise being in a mansion, this minigame feels extremely drawn out. Now, it should be noted that all of the ally minigames are long on purpose, but there's just not much exciting happening for how long the minigame plays out. You organize photos, pick out the wrong statue, and walk across a floor, and you do that a few times in a row. It's fine for what it is, but it didn't need to be this long-winded. 87. Rinks to Riches. A coin minigame where you skate around in the Mario 3D World shoe and get coins. Smashing through the big piles of snow will net you red coins, and that's pretty much it. A lot of the strategy is just hoping the coins spawn near you, as it can be easy to miss them if you get bad spawns. 86. Twist and Sort. By tilting the platforms, the goal is to get bloopers and Cheep Cheeps in the right containers. It's pretty simple until multiple enemies start coming out at once, and you have to try to split them up correctly without pushing enemies into the wrong areas. It's a fairly average but decent minigame. 85. Mega Rocky Wrench Wreckers. A bit more enjoyable than some of the other boss minigames. A rocky wrench pops out of this hole and you have to keep shooting him down. Although there's also other wrenches to shoot and avoid or you'll lose points, so at least it has that going for it. 84. Granite Getaway. A boulder chases you down a tunnel or tomb, wherever you're supposed to be. The only obstacles are some debris or rocks that you'll have to jump over, but that's about it. This one graphically looks a lot better than the Mario Party 6 version, and it's fairly straightforward. 83. Castle Hassle. It's the same idea, except Bowser is chasing you down and there's obstacles to watch out for. It's not bad for what it is. Add Infinity Nikki. This is the coziest open world game you can find. It's like Barbie meets Mario meets Zelda. What we have here is a game with platforming mechanics and open world exploration similar to Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. There's no apocalypse, wasteland, or warfare. Infinity Nikki is a much calmer fantasy world filled with dreamy and wonderful creatures. Just look at how breathtaking it looks. You can change into many different outfits to fish, catch bugs, or collect wool from sheep and puppies. There's lots of exploring to do as well, whether that's done by floating, purifying, gliding, shrinking, etc. These abilities are acquired by collecting materials to craft ability outfits, and that unlocks abilities through outfit changes. It's a key opponent to the game. There's also a ton of puzzles and minigames to complete, with lots of different clothing designs to pick from. So go ahead and pre-order the game for yourself with the link in the description or pinned comment. 82. Tricky Turntable. A coin game where a turntable turns 90 degrees if one switch is pushed on. So the idea is to fool the other players into giving yourself coins and them less coins or a bob-omb. This is a really great idea for a minigame, but there's one problem. It goes on for 7 rounds before it ends. This one minigame takes almost 3 minutes to finish. Why is it so long? That's a weird issue with Mario Party Jamboree. So many of the minigames take way longer than they need to. 81. Match that item. If you like hitting buttons to stop spinners, then this is the game for you. Although in all fairness, I do kind of like trying to time out the spinner to get the item I want. But this is pretty bare bones for what's essentially an 8-player minigame. 80. Treasure Divers, and another one from Mario Party 1. The goal is to grab the chest and bring them to the surface without getting hit. Although I have to say, I feel like the hitboxes are way less forgiving and it's a lot easier to get hit. Maybe it's just a skill issue, but I don't remember it being this tricky to bring the chest to the surface. 79. Sleight of Shell. Bowser puts bob-ombs in some shells, and you have to find the one that doesn't have one. This is already a pretty basic minigame, but it takes forever to finish because of the multiple rounds and waiting for computers to make dumb mistakes. 78. Cage Catch. One person is just trying to go for a relaxing swim, while the other 3 want to capture them. While it's very fun juking out people as the swimmer, it's incredibly difficult to win as the group of 3 because of how slow the cage drops. Because it's a bit too unfair, I can't really rank it much higher than this. 77. Ski Daddle. Push L or R to the beat of the song and move the skis along with everyone else. While I'm a big fan of rhythm-based games, this one is a bit too simple. It doesn't ever change the beat much or ever get all that hard. 76. 3-Throw. A bunch of baskets scroll across the wall, so the goal of course is to score the most points. The yellow ones are worth double, but are harder to reach as you'd expect. I've always loved how this minigame looks and its concept, but I've never found it to be super fun. It's solid and requires skill to time your throws, but it's a bit deflating when all that's left for points is hard to reach baskets. 75. Treetop Treasure. Coins pop in and you have to grab them. The main challenge is just the tilting platforms and trying to not get squished by everyone else. It's not all that memorable, but fairly enjoyable to play. 74. Hammer it Home. A pretty solid motion-controlled minigame. By charging up your hammer, you'll do bigger swings. So the idea is to charge it just enough so you'll knock the nail in without having to hit it twice. It's pretty fun trying to optimize your timing just right. 73. Stone Eye Bowling. You push a ball down a hill and try to get a strike or just hit a lot of the pins. I, however, am dog shit at this game for some reason and can never get a good score. But that doesn't mean it's a bad minigame. The sand piles make for a pretty solid puzzle. 72. Juice Works. A rather unusual minigame. Everyone works together to make some juice. The entire thing takes place on a conveyor line, from picking the apples to squishing them down and packaging them to the store. While it's really different, there's not much drive to compete since everybody is, well, obviously working together. 71. Look This Way. No, it's not Look Away from Mario Party 2. This actually functions very differently, believe it or not. Instead of one person controlling the direction to turn your head, a spinner does it. You only get maximum points if everyone turns their head the correct way. Since the spinner can cause fake-outs, this honestly causes more frustration than fun at times. It is kind of cool to see these characters up close and look at their expressions, but the original version is a lot better. 70. Which door has more? Count out the character there's more of, and then get coins from them. While I like the concept, it drags on for way too long. Look, I've said this before and I'll say it more, but this one really could have been done with after 3 or 4 rounds. 69. Burning Bridges. You, as well as a group of 20, jump over a bunch of fireballs. It's very basic, but kind of fun to see who can last the longest. 68. Arch Rivals. Not to be confused with Mario Party 2's Archer Rival, it's kind of the same mini-game but with the camera flipped. As the solo player, you'll fire arrows and try to score 100 points before time is up, while the other 3 move the target around. Hitting the targets is a little wonky, but fun once you get used to the perspective. It's fairly balanced between both teams. 67. Prime Cut. Good God, does that steak look tasty. The idea is to team up and cut the 3 steaks as symmetrical as possible. Half of the fun is just looking at the steak though, honestly. God, it looks so good. 66. Trading cards. You and 7 other players have to pass around cards and put them in the right order. What makes this one unique is that each round has different photos, which can drastically change the difficulty. It's a bit weird to wrap your head around at first, but it's a decent enough minigame. 65. Income stream. You know the developers cackled their heads off at how much of a pun this minigame title is. It's technically a 1v3, but the goal is to just get coins. One person gets Plussy, which is cool, while the other 3 are on the world's flattest jet skis. It's pretty simple, but also pretty quality. 64. Spike's Gambit. Another coin minigame. This time you run up and down a sandy hill to grab them while avoiding a bunch of spikes. While I like that the daytime changes for each level, it goes on for too long and it isn't that interesting to last as long as it does. 63. Robo Arm Wrestle. Shake that drifted Joy-Con of yours and go to town to win the arm wrestle match. I mostly like this because it's quick and to the point, and it's satisfying to watch the other team's arm go down. 62. Light Wave Battle. You're jumping over light waves and ground pounding your own to attack. It's usually very quick as only 3 hits are required to knock someone out, but it's a pretty solid one if you understand the timing. 61. Bruiser Bash. I'm always a fan of Bruiser getting a spotlight in any regard. One player controls the big fella, while the other 3 have to avoid his onslaught of punches. Bruiser's movement is very slow and clunky, but he also has a huge range when it comes to the punches. It makes for a surprisingly solid minigame. Both teams have a decent shot of winning. 60. Waluigi's Pinball Arcade. The fact that Waluigi got an entire minigame based around Mario Kart's Waluigi Pinball is kind of wild. And while this is really cool and the board has a lot to do, it lasts for 3 minutes. Minigames do not need to go on for this long, especially if they're a part of the boards and not a side mode. I mean, it's still fun, but I just wish it was only a minute or so. 59. Cookie Cutters. One of the better 1v3 minigames. The objective is to cut out the most cookies, and you'll do this by pressing the right button. Both teams have about the same advantage, although I definitely prefer to be on my own and go ham on pressing the cookies in. 58. Lumber Tumble. You run across a wooden road with a bunch of logs that are trying to push and pull you around. It's a pretty basic idea, but the logs can make things scary at moments if you're not paying attention to what's coming up. It's a solid minigame all around. 57. Slappy Go Round. A dual minigame where each person can either jump or ground pound to release Master Hand. This one is all about playing the mind games on one another, and is a lot of fun to play. 56. Sled to the Edge. This minigame has a weird start as it shows you a cutscene of a toad falling into the water and one avoiding it. The idea is to get as close to the edge as possible. My strategy is to look at the icebergs in the back and try to push the button at just the right time. It doesn't always work perfectly, but it makes for a tense minigame when trying to be as risky as possible. 55. Rocky Rope Race. A 2v2 where each player swings from bar to bar to reach the end. I really like that you actually have to hold the button while the other player is swinging or you'll both fall, and it's really fun trying to nail every grab perfectly. 54. Snow Brawl. Another 1v3 where it's a big old snowball fight. The only difference is that getting hit once and then you just turn into a block of ice, which is kind of intense when you think about it. The solo player at least has Yukikis helping them, so it's a pretty good minigame for both teams. 53. Puzzle Pandemonium. Solve a puzzle by aligning the pieces in the right spot. This one really reminds me of nights with family or friends where you're all working together to solve a big 1,000 piece puzzle. It has that same kind of energy, and I dig it. 52. Sky High Cannons. The title says it all. You shoot cannons into the sky to get coins. And hey, they took the cannons right out of New Super Mario Bros. Don't ask why I know that off the top of my head. There's nothing wrong with me. No, of course not. But yeah, it's enjoyable to fire yourself around and try to grab as many coins as possible. 51. Cold Front. A bunch of Typhoos are trying to blow you off the sheet of ice. Never all at the same time, of course, so you simply have to avoid the wind currents. This one can get quite frantic by the end. The only point knocking it down is the slippery movement, but that's hardly a big deal. 50. Squeaky Shakedown. Immediately when I see this, I think of Bash and Cash from Mario Party 1. This is basically the same thing, but inverse to 3 people with a money bag and 1 with a hammer. I loved this game in Mario Party 1, and it's great in Jamboree as well. Although I do wish the coins actually came from the player's coin count from the board, but I digress. 49. Shadow Play. On a team, you'll match up 2 shadows with a picture in the middle. This is done by quickly scrolling through a wheel, so you have to find the shape as fast as possible. It can be hard to do in a rush because the shapes look so similar, so its frantic nature makes it a good time. 48. Soup Troop. Slice up a bunch of fresh ingredients to make a delicious soup. It's a music-based one, so you're just slicing to the beat. 47. Burger Builders. To the beat, you'll add ingredients to a really large burger. It's a little awkward at first, but it's pretty fun and looks incredibly appetizing. 46. On the Beat. This time, you're picking a bunch of veggies to some tunes. These can be carrots, onions, and even radishes. It's about as fun as all the other rhythm games. 45. Parfait the Course. Yeah, I'm gonna be putting pretty much all the food games in the same general area. This time, you're hitting ingredients into a parfait. This has to be the goofiest shit I've ever seen, and is literally just the baseball game from Super Mario Party but reskinned. 44. Spread and butter. So now we're spreading butter onto some toast. The sheer speed of the butter being pressed on this quickly is kind of impressive. 43. Footlong Frenzy. Oh yeah, of course, we gotta make sandwiches to a beat by closing them to the music. This is so unbelievably silly, and that's what makes these so enjoyable. 42. Whisk Cream. Ah yes, let's whisk some cream by having Lekadu drop it 10 feet into the air. This has to be the most inconvenient way to prepare food ever, but it makes for a fun minigame. 41. And Barbed. Time to make some kebabs by stabbing the crap out of the food with your skewer. And this is the same thing as the sword minigame from Super Mario Party. It's really surprising how many of these are just reworked assets. 40. Short Stack Chef. The fact that this is rhythm time is insane. We're flipping pancakes to a beat, and at the end you flip a big pancake. Man, I'm hungry after all this food. Holy crap. 39. Copycat Curry. This one is similar to the Waluigi dancing one from Super Mario Party, but now we're throwing spices into the curry by dropping moves. How someone even comes up with this is beyond me. It's so unbelievably goofy. 38. Lane Change. This one is coming right out of Thumper. I mean, seriously, it's gotta be inspired by it. The goal is simple. Get as many coins as possible while flying down the highway. While it looks like it's a fast-paced environment, honestly, the game never gets that fast. It's still fun, but I wish the difficulty was picked up a little bit more by the end. 37. Fire Away. Survive by avoiding the lava and onslaught of bullet bills. This one has a bit of a rush to it, especially because there's times where you have barely enough space on the pole to avoid getting hit. 36. Boss Sumo Bro Blitzers. By far the best boss minigame. You play a round of Pipe Dream as fast as possible to collect electricity to fire at the Sumo Bro. While you get more points for completing the puzzle the fastest, the rewarding aspect is just solving the puzzle in general. 35. Down the Hatch. If you ever wanted a bunch of plushies of Mario and Yoshi, this is the peak minigame. The idea is to get as much plushie stuff down the chute as possible using a finger to push. I just love the physics and how realistic it looks. It's really fun. 34. Peach's Day Off. Here's another ally minigame, but this one is pretty damn good. You'll start by trying to deliver as many gifts to Peach as possible without running into Bitty Buds. Then you have to try to grab donuts for her, but if two people select the same one, then you get nothing, which is pretty dumb. But at least it's just a small part of the whole minigame. The end has you grabbing shapes to launch fireworks into the air. So while it's not perfect, it's a fairly decent minigame overall. 33. Fuzzy Heights. Climb up this pole while avoiding all the fuzzies. It's easier said than done as the fuzzies tend to move around sporadically and swiftly. I honestly still need to get practice in for this, but it's a pretty solid one. Heck, it could even work as a 4-player minigame. 32. Coin Corral. Lasso some treasure chests and take the doubloons within them. What I like about this one is you can grab small chests yourself, but you have to team up with your partner to nab the big ones. 31. Defuse or Lose. You have to continuously pound out the sparks. What makes this nerve-wracking is King Bob-omb just sitting there like an idiot in those moments when you accidentally squish your team. It's a really great minigame overall. 30. Golden Brown. Throw a bunch of treats into the oven and take them out before they burn. As usual, the food looks fantastic, but I just want to eat all of it. But visuals aside, I really like the franticness of having to watch every single treat and make sure to see when they pop up so you can grab them before they burn. 29. Tiny Triathlon. It's pretty much how it sounds. You'll swim, bike, and run all in one minigame. Although I do find the blooper paddles to be a really goofy addition. What athletes would ever need those? The Tristle minigame has the same controls from Trike Harder, by the way, the minigame in Super Mario Party. There's a lot happening at once, which I think is for the best. 28. Daisy's Field Day. This reminds me of Peach's minigame a little bit, but is put together a lot better. The goal is to collect these Daisy coins, and you'll do so through a bunch of different ways, whether it's running across pillars, running on these spinning platforms, jumping over fences, or surviving this rolling platform at the end. The fact that each minigame is tied to the coins make them all feel a bit more interconnected. 27. Shuffle Scuttle. Probably my favorite motion-controlled minigame. The idea is to fly around in little pods while avoiding the amps on electricity. What makes this so great is you can actually push players around and knock them into electricity. The interactions are what make this a fun romp. 26. DK's Conga Line. Again, we're getting more direct references in this game, this one being Donkey Konga on the GameCube. This minigame plays pretty much how it looks, but I really enjoy the rhythm games. It's a blast to get the timing down just right and nail the solos. While I think the minigame goes on for maybe a hair too long, it's still a very strong one. 25. Two-Axis Taxi. One player goes up and down, while the other is side to side. The main obstacle you have is a bunch of walleyes running around, as well as other walls and barriers. This one is a ton of fun to do if both players know what they're doing. If not, it can be a bit confusing. 24. Ballistic Bingo. For a team-based minigame, this one goes pretty hard. The idea is to score as many bingos as possible, but you have a limited amount of shots, so everyone has to work together to make the matches. It's great fun. 23. Camera Ready. Wow, this one is pretty fantastic. You'll get a snapshot and basically have to replicate it the best you can. What makes this challenging is the shots can be anywhere around you, and characters are constantly moving around, so you have to not only frame your shot just right, but also snap it at just the right time. 22. Bowser Crashers. I guess you could say this is the final boss of minigames. You fight Bowser and shoot him down your rocket thrusters. Bowser will also try to attack with his claws and fire, and it can be hard to avoid if you aren't paying attention. I really like how the respective changes halfway through, too. It's a pretty solid minigame for a finale. 21. Hot Hot Hop. Magmars and fire bars want to toast you up, so you gotta avoid all these obstacles to win. It's not too hard until you realize that the Magmars like to take their sweet old time and hog up a lot of space on the walkway. Because of this, it makes it tricky to survive by the end. 20. The Floor is Falling. The title says it all. Bowser will cause parts of the floor to fall, and you have to stay alive by running to the safe areas quickly. I really like how fast-paced this one gets by the end. It gets terrifyingly quick. 19. Stamp Out. One of the greats from Mario Party 4. You stamp your color all over the page and try to have the most of your color by the end. Not only is spacing your jumps important, but so is covering other players' colors. There's a decent amount of complexity to winning this one. 18. Chomp Wash. One player hoses down the chain chomp, while the rest run maintenance underground and patch the holes. This one really makes you feel like you're contributing to a great cause and is fun to work together on, even if it is just cleaning off the chompies. 17. Coin Conveyor. A minigame that's pretty similar to Peace Out from Mario Party 5. You match up a bunch of coins and bob-ohms to score points. You can also rotate your pieces and throw out the ones that don't fit anywhere. I already like puzzle games, so I have a bit of a bias towards minigames like these. 16. Trample Line. Bounce on the ant troopers and avoid the ones with the spiky hats on. What I love about this one is you can bounce off the walls, and even other players to survive. It gets pretty scary when the horned ant troopers get really close to you. One little slip up and it's all over. 15. Pickin' Produce. Think Overcooked, but more simplified. Each fruit needs to go in its correct basket, and they move on a conveyor belt. You have to constantly move fruit to the right places. This one can get quite thrilling due to the large amount of food that pops up. 14. Scarousel. You run around a merry-go-round and have to avoid a bunch of boos, walls, chain chomps, and electricity all trying to slow you down. It starts off simple, but man, it gets tough once the merry-go-round starts spinning really fast. It's the boos that are the biggest obstacle here. You have to react to their positioning almost immediately to survive. 13. Jump the Gun. I'm surprised to see this one get remade, and it's a really fun one. One player will shoot bullet bills into targets while the other has to jump on top of them. Since you can pick and choose the target shots, it's up to the team to choose how risky and big you want to make the jumps. The bigger the better if you ask me. 12. Sandwiched. Who the heck's making all these sandwiches anyway? SpongeBob and Sandy down at the park? Anyway, you have to avoid the sandwiches by running and jumping out of the way. It's easy to tell where they're falling by watching the shadows, but it gets fast by the end. These delicious lunches make this one of the most frantic and fun minigames available. 11. Junior's Jauntlet. Bowser Jr. has a lot of tricks up his sleeve. The main thing we're avoiding is a barrage of different attacks. Whether that be Chain Chomps, Hammer Bros, Chargin' Chucks, he's got it all. And at the end, Junior tries to punch anyone that survived anyway. And all of this just to be his friend afterwards, which is just hilarious. 10. Noggin Knock. I don't know why I enjoyed this minigame so much. It really is as simple as just bopping as many Monty Moles as you can. They pop up all over the place, and I was really enjoying just going as fast as possible trying to nail them all. I think it's because they also pop up behind you, and it adds a nice layer of depth. 9. Snag the flags. Book it across the globe and grab as many flags as you can. I don't know what it is, but something about running atop spears is just so enjoyable to me. The best way to win is to pay attention to your surroundings and try to get flags that are in clumps. There's a lot to consider for this minigame, which makes it one of the best in the game. 8. Bath Bob-Ohms. I can't be the only one that's reminded of Sword or Splode from Mario 64 DS, right? All we're doing here is picking up the Bob-Ohms and throwing them into the water. That's right, pollute that water the best you can, because our rank goes down if the Bob-Ohms start exploding in front of the door. This minigame gets intense by the end. There's Bob-Ohms all over the place, and it's a blast trying to keep up with all of them. 7. On Again, Off Again. One of the best mind game minigames in Jamboree. Using the Mario Maker on/off switch, the solo player turns on and off platforms to try to drop grolls on its enemies. This one is so much fun as you can come up with tons of plans and creative ways to drop the grolls to surprise people. 6. Yoshi's Mountain Race. You want a little mini 3D platforming adventure? Well, this minigame is for you then. You'll ride Yoshi and climb atop a mountain while eating fruits to gain speed and avoiding enemies. It's a lot of fun to replay and try to improve your time. The controls are not perfectly fluid, but they still feel really well done. 5. All the Marbles. Anyone else picture the Mr. Beast Orbeez thumbnail when playing this? Or is that just me? Anyway, the idea is to push yourself through all the marbles first, and I adore this idea. It just feels good to find those little creases between the marbles and squeeze yourself through them. And the physics feel so natural. I can only imagine that this must have taken ages to get working perfectly. 4. Mario's Three-Peat. This is such a bizarre minigame, but also one of the most clever ones. It's a sequence of 3 iconic minigames from the past. You start with Leaf Leap and climb up to the top, but instead of going to space, it ends in the sky and then you're playing bumper balls. And once that ends, everyone gets balloons and they float up and start Shy Guy Says. Chaining together minigames in this fashion is brilliant. I really love what they did here. My only qualm is that bumper ball physics don't feel quite right, but otherwise this minigame is just amazing. 3. Rosalina's Radical Race. Oh yeah, the radical in the name is no joke. This starts off as a really fun snowboarding minigame with some boosts you can trick off of, but then out of completely nowhere, Rainbow Road? Yeah, the entire level just turns into Rainbow Road for half of it. This has to be one of the most unexpected things I've ever come across in Mario Party, and it's incredibly fun on top of that. 2. Brick Breaker. This is unreal. Can you believe that Mario Party Jamboree references Alleyway, a Game Boy game where Mario controls a paddle exactly like this one? Yeah, this breakout clone is incredibly fun to do. Knocking out the bricks with the Koopa shells and destroying the 8-bit characters is just amazing. I almost wish this was its own separate mode and it had way more levels. 1. Domination. I'll admit it, this is 100% a biased pick because I've always loved Domination since Mario Party 4. All you do here is mash A as fast as humanly possible to get the highest score. But look, I have always enjoyed and excelled at button mashing, so I find it endlessly satisfying listening to the high-paced music while watching my endless amount of womps falling for forever. Man, I cannot fathom how many minigames are packed into Mario Party Jamboree. This might end up being one of the best Mario Parties of all time. It's pretty crazy how much effort was put into just the minigames and the sheer diversity of them. But with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.